Every legend has an origin, and for One Piece, it began here, in the East Blue, the sea everyone called weak, but the sea that created monsters, dreams, and destiny itself. Maybe when you first watched it, you didn't think much of it. Just a fun start, a boy with a smile and a crazy dream.
俺はモンキー D ルフィ海賊王になる男だ
But hidden in that simple beginning were clues to everything Oda-sensei would build for the next 1,000 episodes. And you'll be shocked by how much you missed. Right from the very start. Romance Dawn, the boy who will be king. Our story begins in a small, quiet village in the East Blue, Foosha Village. A peaceful place where a cheerful boy named Monkey D. Luffy dreamed of becoming the Pirate King. As a kid, Luffy wasn't strong. He wasn't feared, but he had something no one else did, an unbreakable will. Everything changed when a pirate crew dropped anchor in the village. They were led by red-haired Shanks, a carefree man with a grin that could silence a fight before it began. To the villagers, he was trouble. To Luffy, he was the very definition of freedom. Shanks and his crew treated Luffy like one of their own. They laughed together, ate together, and taught him what it really meant to live without fear. Luffy idolized them so much that he wanted to join their crew, but Shanks just laughed it off. Maybe when you're older, he'd say. One day, curiosity led Luffy into trouble. Inside Shanks' ship, he found a strange fruit sitting in a chest, the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Without thinking, he took a bite. In seconds, his body turned to rubber.
やけ食いかルフィお前何食べてるその箱かその箱の中のものを食べたのか吐け今すぐ吐け貴様ら全部
And his dream nearly vanished with it. Because a devil fruit grants power, but it takes away the sea, and a pirate who can't swim is a contradiction of fate. Time passed. Then came the day that changed everything. A group of mountain bandits led by Higuma humiliated Shanks and his crew in the bar. Luffy tried to stand up for them, but he was captured and thrown into the sea, the one place he could no longer survive. As the Sea King rose to devour him, Shanks appeared in front of it, fearless, calm, and ready to pay the price. He saved Luffy, but lost his arm.
Zoro.
The Sea King fled, terrified, and for the first time, Luffy cried not out of fear, but out of understanding. He realized what true strength looked like, not power, but sacrifice. Before leaving the village, Shanks knelt down and placed his straw hat on Luffy's head. "Take care of this," he said, "and return it to me, once you've become a great pirate." That hat became Luffy's treasure, a promise, a dream, a destiny.
この帽子をお前に預ける俺の大切な帽子だ大事にしろよ
Years later, the day finally came. Luffy set sail alone in a tiny boat, wearing that same straw hat. He smiled at the open sea, ready to carve his name into history. He fought Alvida and won with a single punch. He saved a timid boy named Kobe, who dreamed of joining the Marines. And together, they reached Shellstown, a marine base ruled by Captain Morgan, a tyrant who used fear as law. There, Luffy met Roronoa Zoro, a swordsman bound to a post, left to die. People called him a monster, but Luffy saw something different. A man who would rather die standing than live on his knees. He offered Zoro a choice, freedom, and a chance to chase his dream. After a brutal fight, Morgan was defeated. And just like that, the first bond of the Straw Hat crew was formed. Two dreamers, sailing into the unknown. One chasing freedom, the other chasing strength. And together, the legend of the Straw Hat Pirates began. Orange Town, the Clown and the Thief. After leaving Shellstown, Luffy and Zoro drifted across the East Blue. 2 pirates, 1 tiny boat, and a dream far bigger than the sea itself. Their next stop was a place called Orangetown, once lively and full of people, now silent and broken. The reason? A pirate with a red nose and a laugh that echoed through empty streets. Buggy the Clown. Buggy wasn't just another pirate. He had eaten the Bara no Mi, a devil fruit that let him split his body into pieces and control each part at will. It made him unpredictable and deadly. But behind that circus act was something darker, a grudge against another pirate, red-haired Shanks. And that's where Luffy met her, Nami.
腹減ったな。親分、助けに来てくれたのね。誰だ？悪いけど、あとは任せたわ。
A skilled thief and navigator who stole from pirates to survive. She despised them, every last one. But she saw Luffy as a means to an end. If she could use him to get Buggy's treasure, she would. At first, it was all manipulation. Nami pretended to join Luffy, tricking Buggy's crew to set her plan in motion. But things went sideways fast. Luffy ended up captured, locked inside a cage. Zoro jumped in to protect him, fighting Buggy's acrobat, Kabaji, in a brutal duel. Meanwhile, Nami faced a choice. Stay safe and let Luffy die, or take a risk for someone she barely knew. She made her choice. Working with Luffy, Nami tied up Buggy's separated body parts, leaving him unable to fight back. With his foe restrained, Luffy unleashed a powerful kick, sending Buggy flying far away from Orangetown and ending the battle once and for all. Orangetown was free again. The villagers returned, the air felt lighter, and for the first time, Nami smiled without pretending. She still refused to call herself part of Luffy's crew. Not yet. But she agreed to travel with them, at least until she could steal enough to reach her goal. 3 strangers, 3 dreams, and 1 promise of adventure that was just beginning to take shape. Syrup Village, the long-nosed sniper. After escaping Orangetown, the trio continued their journey through the East Blue. Broke, hungry, and still without a real ship. That's when they stumbled upon Syrup Village, a quiet place by the coast, and the home of one very strange liar. His name was Usopp, the boy who cried pirates. Every morning, he'd run through town shouting that pirates were invading, and every morning, it was a lie. But behind that ridiculous act was a dream, to be a brave warrior of the sea, just like his father, Yasopp, who sailed with none other than Shanks. To most people, Usopp was just a nuisance. But to Luffy, he was familiar, loud, fearless, and full of impossible dreams. The two instantly clicked.
俺の親父がシャンクスの船にあれと顔そっくりだから一目見た時からひょっとしてってそんなすげえ船に俺の親父乗ってんのか今はわかんないけど人まだ一緒だろ
Usopp often visited a sick girl named Kaya, a kind heiress who had lost her parents and lived alone in a mansion with her butler, Klahadore. But Klahadore wasn't who he seemed. Behind that polite smile was the truth. He was Captain Kuro, a pirate who had faked his death 3 years earlier to steal Kaya's fortune. When Luffy and his crew discovered Kuro's plan, it was too late to warn anyone. Kuro's men, the Black Cat pirates, were already approaching the village, ready to kill everyone in their path. Nami and Usopp rushed to defend the slope leading to Kaya's house, while Luffy, who had been put to sleep by Django's hypnosis, arrived alongside Zoro just in time to turn the tide of the battle. The battle was brutal. Zoro cut through the Miaoban brothers, Usopp fought with nothing but courage, and Luffy went head-to-head with Kuro himself, a man so fast his crew couldn't even see his attacks. But no matter how fast Kuro was, he couldn't outrun Luffy's conviction. One final punch sent him crashing into the ground, ending years of deceit and fear. With Kuro defeated, peace returned to Syrup Village.
少々古い方ですが、これは私がデザインしました船で、ゴーイングメリー号でございます。
Grateful for everything they'd done, Kaya gifted them a ship, the Going Merry. Their first real vessel, built by her loyal servant Mary, and the ship that would carry their dreams across the sea. Before they left, Usopp looked back at his village. For years, no one had believed his stories. But now, he was living one. He joined Luffy's crew as their sniper, the long-nosed liar who finally found a reason to be brave. From 3 to 4, the Straw Hat Pirates were growing, and for the first time, they had a ship worthy of their adventure. The sea was getting wider, the stakes higher, and the East Blue was far from finished testing them. Barity, the chef with a dream. With a new ship and a new crewmate, the Straw Hat's journey was finally beginning to feel real. But dreams don't come without hunger, and as they sailed toward the Grand Line, the crew soon found themselves in need of a proper meal. That's when they saw it. Barity, a floating restaurant in the middle of the ocean, run by tough-talking chefs and led by a man named Zeph, a former pirate known as Red Leg Zeph. The Barati was a place where even Marines and pirates could sit down for a meal, if they behaved. And among those chefs was a young man with blonde hair and sharp eyes, Sanji. A cook who'd fight anyone who wasted food, and a man who carried a dream as big as the sea itself, to find the All Blue, the ocean where fish from every sea gathered together. When Luffy accidentally destroyed part of the restaurant during a scuffle, Zeph forced him to work as a busboy to repay the damage. It was there that Luffy saw Sanji's kindness firsthand, feeding a starving pirate even after being insulted for it. But peace never lasts long at sea. One day, a ghost from the Grand Line appeared, the warlord Draculae Mihawk. He was chasing the remnants of Don Krieg's massive fleet, pirates who had barely escaped alive, and they were headed straight for the Barati. Don Krieg, the self-proclaimed strongest man in East Blue, demanded food and the restaurant itself to rebuild his army. Zeph refused, and so began one of the toughest battles the Straw Hats had faced so far. Luffy fought Krieg head-on, enduring a storm of weapons, spears, and poison gas. But no matter how many times Krieg struck, Luffy kept standing. Because unlike Krieg, Luffy had something stronger than an army: conviction. Meanwhile, Zoro faced Mihawk, the world's greatest swordsman. He challenged him knowing he would lose, but still refused to back down. Mihawk defeated him effortlessly, cutting his pride deeper than any wound. But instead of crushing him, Mihawk smiled and told him to grow stronger because the world was vast and they would meet again. That promise, I'll never lose again. Not until I become the world's greatest swordsman, became one of the pillars of the Straw Hat crew. When the battle finally ended, Krieg was defeated, his armor shattered by Luffy's final blow. And as the sea calmed once more, Sanji stood at the edge of the deck, torn between his loyalty to Zeph and his dream of the All Blue. Zeph, smiling through his rough exterior, told him it was time. He had given Sanji his life once before. Now he was giving him his future. Sanji knelt, tears in his eyes, thanking Zeph for everything. And then, he set sail with Luffy, the cook with a dream, the swordsman with a vow, the thief chasing freedom, and the boy aiming for the title of Pirate King. Together, they sailed away from the Barati, stronger, hungrier, and one step closer to destiny. Arlong Park, Nami's painful truth. After leaving the Barati, everything seemed perfect. The Straw Hats had their ship, their cook, and their rhythm. For the first time, they looked like a real crew. But that illusion shattered fast. One morning, Nami was gone. No warning, no explanation. Just her map tools missing, and the treasure gone with her. Luffy didn't say much, but the silence said enough. They followed her trail to a place known across the East Blue for one name that made even pirates hesitate: Arlong. Arlong was no ordinary pirate. He was a fishman, a creature stronger, faster, and crueler than any human could imagine. He ruled his territory with absolute power. Humans paid tribute to him just to survive. When the crew finally reached the village, the truth hit them hard. Nami wasn't captured. She was with Arlong.
私は紛れもない海賊アーロン一味の幹部
To Luffy and the others, it looked like betrayal, but underneath that cold mask was years of pain. When Nami was a child, Arlong invaded her home, Kokoyashi Village. Her adoptive mother, Belle-Mère, took in Nami and her sister Nojiko when they were orphans. She was strong, proud, and poor, but she loved her daughters more than anything. When Arlong demanded tribute from every family, Belle-Mère couldn't pay for all three, so she paid for her daughters and sacrificed herself instead. Right there, in front of Nami, Arlong killed her. That moment shattered everything. To save her village, Nami agreed to work for Arlong, drawing maps for his empire and promising to buy the village's freedom for 100 million berries. For years, she lied, stole, and suffered, all to fulfill that promise. Every coin she earned was a piece of her pain, stacked high in hope. And finally, she had almost enough. But Arlong's world ran on corruption. Before she could pay, a marine captain working under Arlong stole all the money. Her dream, gone in an instant. The villagers, who had known all along what she was doing, tried to fight back, but Nami stopped them, taking the pain alone. Because that's what she'd always done. That night, she snapped. Crying in the middle of the road, she stabbed the tattoo on her shoulder, Arlong's mark, again and again, screaming his name. When Luffy found her, she fell to her knees, hands trembling. "Help me," she said through tears. And Luffy didn't hesitate. He placed his hat, his treasure, on her head. Then walked straight toward Arlong Park. The Straw Hats followed without question. Sanji, Zoro, Usopp, every one of them ready to fight for the woman who had once lied to them. Because now, they understood why. The battle for Kokoyashi Village began. Zoro fought the sword-wielding fishman Hachi underwater. Sanji took on Kurubi, trading blows in the depths where no human should stand a chance. Usopp, terrified but unbroken, faced Chu and won. Not with strength, but with courage. And Luffy faced Arlong himself. Arlong called Nami his property. Luffy answered with fury, "She's my friend!" Each punch tore through the tower Nami had been forced to work in, destroying the maps, the memories, and the years of pain that had trapped her there. When it was over, Arlong Park collapsed into ruin, and the sea, for the first time in 8 years, was calm again. The villagers were free. Nojiko smiled through tears, and Nami smiled like the sun. When the crew prepared to leave, Nami ran down the hill to the ship. She shouted back to her village, pretending to steal their wallets one last time. They laughed, because they knew what it meant. This time, she wasn't running away. She was finally moving forward. As the Going Merry sailed from Kokoyashi Village, the Straw Hats weren't just a crew anymore. They were family. 5 dreamers united by pain, laughter, and freedom. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the Grand Line was waiting. Log Town, the town of beginnings and ends. With Arlong defeated and Nami officially part of the crew, the East Blue was finally behind them. But before entering the Grand Line, there was one last stop. A city built on history. Log Town, the place where it all began, and where it once ended. Because years ago, right in the center of this city, the Pirate King himself, Gol D. Roger, was executed. And it was here, in that moment, that the Great Pirate Era was born. For Luffy, visiting Log Town wasn't just another stop, it was destiny, the town of the man who started his dream, and maybe where his own journey could end before it even began. Luffy explored the city with his usual grin, buying food, wandering the streets, until fate placed him exactly where Roger once stood, the execution platform. Captured by Buggy, who had returned alongside Alvida, Luffy found himself at the edge of death. Buggy raised his blade, ready to finish him. Luffy didn't beg. He didn't flinch. He just smiled. The same fearless smile Roger wore on that very spot. And then, lightning struck. A bolt split the sky and hit the platform, saving him in an instant. Coincidence? Fate? Maybe both. But for the people watching, it was as if the Pirate King's will refused to die. As chaos broke out, a new threat appeared. Captain Smoker of the Marines. A man made of smoke, thanks to his Logia-type devil fruit. For the first time, Luffy was completely overpowered. No matter how he stretched or fought, Smoker could trap him like a ghost in his hands. And then, from the storm, a shadow appeared. A man wrapped in a green cloak. Dragon. No one knew who he was, but with a single move, he stopped Smoker in his tracks and let Luffy escape. The wind shifted, the rain cleared, and the Straw Hats regrouped at the docks. They laughed, shouted, and prepared to sail toward the line no pirate crosses without courage, the Grand Line. As their ship vanished into the storm, every one of them carried something new. Zoro, his vow. Nami, her freedom. Usopp, his courage. Sanji, his dream. And Luffy, his unshakable smile. The boy from Foosha Village was no longer just another pirate. He was a captain with a crew, a purpose, and a legend waiting to unfold. The East Blue had forged them. The Grand Line was waiting to test them. And so the story that began with a small boy and a straw hat finally reached the sea where legends are born.